Yeah, I'll turn it back on. So here's the bottom work. Like we were saying, calipers hung, wheel speed sensors hung. Wheel speed sensor came out of the knuckle over here somewhere, up in there. We're gonna basically, like we said, undo the strut mounts from the top, so that means all this stays together. We've got some prep work here, some shields out of the way. We're gonna have to undo these brackets. This bolt, and the opposite two on the other corner will hold everything. So if we want, we could undo quite a few of these bolts that are gonna kind of just provide bracing, but we can't take these big bolts out until we literally have the engine support, the powertrain lift, blue thing, under there. So we got quite a few things we could do. Same, we could take some of these bracing bolts out, you know, these 12s or 14s, but we need to leave that 17 or 19. We need to pull the exhaust off, which they've already done. If it's a 4-cylinder, it's a little easier. If it's a 6, we can pull it from one manifold, the other manifold, and then some way back here we can pull it. If you really wanted, you could drop the whole entire exhaust. It's just a little bit more work. Additionally, and technical challenge, is the steering shaft. So we are going to drop this whole powertrain, subframe, power steering rack, sway bar, everything. But that steering rack that has the pink line on it goes up into the cab, like into the passenger compartment. So they need to get separated. So what we're going to do, we're going to take that bolt out that the flashlight's on, centered right there, right? That one that's going through the steering shaft. We're going to pull that out, but this black steering shaft is splined to the rack. You can see just a little tiny little rust area. It's splined to that, and there's like 20 splines, so we need to mark it first. When we mark it, that's going to ensure we put it back on in the exact location. You can see that pink mark, maybe you can see, actually already has a little line on the rubber, and so that's okay. We'd really prefer to mark the actual shaft, which is just a tiny bit of rusty, shiny metal just below the black shaft. So if we disconnect it without marking it and we put it on one spline off, we end up with the steering wheel off center. And then we have to come over here and redo this repeatedly. You can put it on the alignment rack and adjust it with the tie rods, but that's not really the right way to do it. The right way to do it is to fix the steering shaft to the rack and pinion. So those are the main things here. We can leave basically all the engine transition mounts on. You're just pulling the subframe and everything down, so in this case we're not going to drain the oil or the transmission. TIS says to, but you don't have to for what we're doing here. We do need to drain the coolant though, and we would have already recovered the refrigerant. So mostly that'll summarize. The only other thing is when you disconnect that steering shaft, there's nothing stopping the steering wheel from spinning 3, 4, 5 times and breaking the clock spring. So what it may make sense to do is take the seat belt and run the seat belt through the steering wheel spoke and hook it back in to the seat belt. So I don't know if this group did that. Oh, they did, huh? Maybe they're lying. Maybe we'll see. And so that's the prep work for the bottom. And so by then we're probably pretty close to putting the powertrain lift on.